Before we begin, I just want to say thank you for every kind word, every quiet view, every soul who finds something familiar in these stories we share. Many of you have told me how much you love these slow moments, these hand-shaped creatures and the quiet tales that unfold behind them. It means the world. And for those of you who are curious about the how, you'll find small notes on materials and steps along the way. I'll gently point out what I do when it feels right, but mostly this is a space for wonder, not instructions. So let's begin. They say the museum was closed that day. No visitors, no staff, just dust and echoes. But someone had heard a rustling behind the old linen display. And when the curator came back the next morning, there she was, sitting not on a pedestal, but neatly on the windowsill, a tiny mummy with a gentle grin and emerald glass eyes. No one remembered unpacking her. She wasn't in the catalog, and yet she looked older than the room itself. Not ancient in a crumbling way, but ancient like bedtime stories, the kind whispered once and then forgotten for decades. She wore her cotton wraps like a scarf tucked by a grandmother, and on her thread-wrapped chest, a tiny silver pin shaped like a key. No one could explain the key, or the faint scent of nutmeg and honey that clung to her. But a child visiting on a school trip pointed to her and said, "She used to live in a book." The teachers laughed, but that night, one of the guards swore he heard pages turning, softly, in a room with no books. Back in my studio, I don't remember starting her. Just thread and wire in my hands, as usual. But the way her grin shaped itself, the way the folds of cotton hugged her little arms, it was as if she was remembering how she used to be held. I didn't paint the green into her eyes. I found it, hiding under a layer of dust on my shelf. 2 perfect beads catching light like secrets. Now she lives quietly, a little guardian of old tales and stray keys. I placed her in a wooden drawer once, and she reappeared on the shelf. No fuss, just there. As if to say, you don't tuck away stories before their endings. She doesn't like the word creepy. She prefers curious and companion. Sometimes I catch her near the window, watching the shadows move across the floor. Not frightened, but listening, as if the wind carries messages in a language older than speech, a language she still remembers. She has a fondness for buttons, especially the ones with chipped paint. She once tucked one into the pocket of my coat. I didn't notice until weeks later when I reached in and felt a sudden warmth. That was the day I found the courage to fix something I had long avoided. Coincidence? Maybe, but I'm not so sure. Once, she fell behind the bookshelf for 3 whole days. When I found her again, her smile hadn't changed, but there was a speck of golden thread caught in her wrapping. I don't own anything gold. If you tell her a secret, she won't tell. But sometimes the air in the room will change, just slightly, like the walls leaned in a little closer to hear something important. And if you leave her beside a sleeping cat or snoring dog, they'll shift in their dreams, their paws twitching, as if chasing stories only she can tell. Sometimes she hums, but only when no one's listening. It's not a tune you recognize, more like a memory you forgot you had. A cradle song from somewhere deep in your bones. She doesn't ask for much. A quiet shelf, a bit of light in the morning, maybe an old book nearby. The kind with yellowed pages and a stitched spine. I once caught her facing the corner, not out of sadness, but concentration. When I turned her around, there was a tiny feather pressed between her hands. Where she found it, I'll never know. If you leave out a pencil and paper, she sometimes arranges the letters into shapes. Never words, but once it looked like a small boat, and once like a window with the curtain drawn back. She doesn't like loud voices, but she understands them. She's seen the world make noise when it's afraid. That's why she listens in silence, to make room for what others can't hear. Some nights, I think she glows. Just the faintest warmth at her core, like a lantern wrapped in linen, shining only when you stop looking directly. And if she ever disappears, don't worry. She'll come back when you need her, always in her own time, and always with that quiet grin that seems to say, I never really left. One evening, I found a dried violet near her feet, pressed perfectly flat, as if tucked into an invisible book. She had no pockets, and yet there it was. Maybe it was a gift, maybe a memory she wanted to share. Sometimes I think she guards dreams, the ones that wander too far and forget the way back. She keeps them safe in the folds of her linen bandages until you're ready to remember. I've never seen her move, but once, a glass marble rolled off the shelf and landed near her hand. It was green, like her eyes, and when I placed it in her palm, she seemed a little more complete. In a way, she's like a story fragment, a half-finished sentence, waiting patiently for someone kind enough to sit beside her and imagine the rest. And if you ask her where she came from, she won't answer. But you might suddenly remember your grandmother's kitchen light, or the smell of a wooden chest you once opened in a dream. Once, when it rained for 3 days, she sat by the window and didn't blink. I asked if she liked storms. She didn't answer, but the next morning, there was a tiny paper boat on my desk, folded from a page torn long ago. If you leave her near a candle, the shadows on the wall seem to dance a little differently. Not frightening, just slow, gentle movements, like old lullabies trying to remember their tune. Children don't question her. They greet her like a forgotten friend, sometimes with a wave, sometimes with a whispered hello. She always listens. One time, I thought she vanished. She wasn't on the shelf or the desk or under the pile of sketches. Then, I found her sitting upright in my coat pocket, looking pleased, as if she'd taken a short trip and brought back silence. At night, when everything is quiet, she seems to glow just a little, not from within, but as if the moon remembers her and leaves behind a trace of silver to say, "I know you, I see you." Sometimes I wonder if she used to be a bookmark. Not in the ordinary way, of course, but the kind that slips between pages of half-forgotten fairy tales, waiting to be found again when someone's heart is ready. She seems to like dust, not because she's messy, but because dust holds memories. Tiny pieces of time floating in the sun. She gathers them like others collect buttons or pressed flowers. Once, I saw her tilt her head toward an empty teacup, as if listening to what it once held. Some dolls need voices to tell their stories. She just needs a little silence and something warm nearby. And when the day is over and I put away the brushes, she stays on the shelf by the lamp, just sitting, just glowing a little, like she's waiting for the next story to walk through the door. If you're ever afraid of the dark, place her near your bed. Not too close. Just close enough to remind you that not all forgotten things are scary. Some of them simply waited too long to be remembered. Thank you for spending time with us today. If this little mummy made you feel anything, a flicker, a smile, a question, I'd love to know. Your comments and kindness help me keep sharing stories like this. Tomorrow, the pumpkin arrives, and he brought something that glows from the inside. See you soon.